in your good environments, it's encouraged to ask questions, and it's open, and it's a very much an open door policy. It's not a you're questioning me. It's a you're trying to gain an understanding, and it's the relationship and the environment that's created that then allows players to feel confident enough to ask those questions.
Welcome to the Sporting Mindset Show. Today we're joined by Travis Gordon and guest host and coach Alex Stajka for a conversation about adapting, learning and finding your place in the game. From moving from South African rugby to the English game to making the shift from the back row into the centres, Travis shares what it takes to embrace a new role, keep asking better questions and grow through setbacks. We also get into coaching, communication and the resilience that carries a player through injury, transition and the next challenge. Enjoy. Thank you for joining us, Travis, on this episode. And we'll start with the very simple one of nicknames. Do you have any?
I must say, it hasn't been that exciting when it comes to nicknames. As me and Alex probably discussing this morning, I've pretty much just been known as Trav for most of my career. There's one that I can go back to when I was, I think, 10. I was given the nickname the Enforcer, but obviously I haven't grown that much bigger since then. So, that role tends to move on to the bigger lads. And then back when I was playing in South Africa, I was obviously one of the few English-speaking guys. So I was given the nickname Soti, which I'm sure most rugby fans who know South Africa, because you're the English guy, that was the nickname I was given by pretty much everyone.
And so what does that mean? What does Soti mean?
I don't know if I can give the full description to keep it PG, but it's got to do with half of you in South Africa, half of you in England, and there's a part of you that hangs in the ocean, so it becomes a bit salty. So they just say you on both sides, so you're not just truly one or the other. So yeah, that was the nickname I was given.
In giving, you don't have a choice for nicknames most of the time. Did you own that? Did you take some sort of ownership on to that nickname?
Yeah, like I was back home. Like I said, I was one of the few English guys at training, and it was just something which is what, like you say, nicknames you just crack on with, and yeah, like took it on board. Proud of it. Is what it is. It's ironic because now I am in England, so I guess I did. I was both sides. Yeah.
And so we will talk about that. So you came from South Africa like going on 3 years ago. How have you transitioned from that South African rugby, which is primarily dry, hard pitches, to the world of English rugby, which can tend to be softer, sort of more what possibly some people would describe as a slugfest?
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect description. I think I'd say it probably took me about a year just to figure it out, because obviously the first year you start, like when I got here, the weather was great. I was like, what's everyone complaining about? You can run the ball around. This is fantastic. And then obviously winter hit and I realized, okay, I now understand why when the English teams come to South Africa and it drizzles a little bit and every South African panics because there's a little bit of rain, why your English teams can throw the ball around, because you're always training in the wet. So like, I'd say the biggest learning point was just how good your basics have to be. So like your early catch, giving yourself that more time, because the winter rugby, the ball is literally just a ball of mud some games. It's slimy. So yeah, it probably took me about a full year to adjust to the way we try to play, how you play it. And then also realizing in those winter months, how quickly the game slows down just because of the conditions. So yeah, that was quite a challenge, but it's been good.
The slower or perceived slower pace of the game, did that suit you, or did that or did you find that it sort of went against the grain for you?
It was something that I had to not be in the heaviest loose forward that played. I had to just change the way I went around playing. So coming from SA, I was always in the trams, like you're running, you get the ball a lot. In the winter months, the ball doesn't always get to the wide channels. So it was just in those tight exchanges, positioning yourself in the right areas, maybe carrying lower so you don't try wrestle with the guys who are 120, 130 upright. So just like your small little nuances on how to still make meters without necessarily being able to use your speed or your ability.
The game model we've got makes it clearer for you guys in terms of your roles.
Yeah.
So there's less thinking. Everyone knows their role. Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So that might have made it a bit easier.
I'll say like the system, is very much, it's a system and you're a cog in the system. And if you know your role and you understand your role, you can just, everyone executes it. So it's not about actually like necessarily the individual, it's what your role is within that system and just executing that system.
And so from your point of view, do you have to consciously go into training with the attitude of, okay, I just got to nail my role. That's it. This training session, I just nail my role and know exactly what I have to do? Or is there a part of you that says, happy to know my role, but I also want to work on my ability to adapt to a situation as it pans out in front of me?
I think you're giggly as interested. I think having been within pro systems and coming from like the schoolboy system in South Africa, I've always been ingrained to know my role and do my role. But it's always been encouraged that if you know your detail and you know your role within the system, then your talent and your X factor can be shown within that system. So don't go doing your own thing, but at the same time, follow what the structure is, follow what the team is. And then within that, you'll have opportunity to show who you are. So like, I wouldn't say there's a pressure. It's a requirement for me as to make sure I know the entire game plan. It's something I've always tried to pride myself on. It's not just knowing what my role is, but it's not helping and knowing what everyone's role is, understanding the purpose of what we're trying to do. And then from there, being able to express myself within that system. And that's saying.
So you guys had a little chuckle there. Why was that chuckle, Alex? What?
Trav knows his role. I can't remember how far in advance we told you, but literally just before the season started last year, we realised our 12 had got injured and was unavailable for the year, and we had no replacement. So we had a little discussion in the coach's office, and it was sort of, the suggestion was thrown that we put Trav in at 12. They'd done the whole of pre-season at 7. And then it was kind of like Trav, can you come into the office for 5 minutes, please? By the way, you're with the backs this year. And so adapting to that was, I don't know how you found it, but
yeah. Can you remember that meeting, Trav, and actually what your thought process was when these guys have said, mate, play at 12?
Yeah, so it's actually a funny one because the first meeting was, Trav, we want you to potentially cover 12 this weekend. But the way Harvey positioned it, he was like, we're going to start, we want you to cover 12. We're going to start with, we're going to have these 3 loose forwards on the pitch. So we need you to be able to cover 12 as well as 7. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. And it probably took me about 40 minutes. And then just before the team meeting, I realized, oh shit, that means, sorry.
All right.
On the bench this weekend for the first game of the season. And I was like, well positioned. But then the following week, having trained the 1 week at 12, Harvey then called me in and said, Harvey and Alex called me in and they said, we're going to start you at 12 this weekend. And I was saying that I was really excited for. I think having played loose forward my entire life, it comes second nature. The positioning, where you got to do, what your role is. And it was the challenge of now learning a completely new position. So, which took me probably, I would say 8, 9, 10 games just for the little hamster wheel in my head to stop spinning so frantically of where do I have to be positioned? What do I do? And it took me a couple of weeks just to adjust to the load, the running load. being a loose forward, you run to the edge off a breakdown, you stay on the edge. As a center, you get to the edge, you got to get back, get to the middle of the park. You've got to now drive the same forwards that I was, that you once chilling. So it took a while to adapt, but at the same time, like I've always, like I said earlier, prided myself on understanding the whole system. So, and being able to learn that obviously made the transition a lot easier. And then with the guidance of Alex and Harvey, just to be able to transition easily into that role that the team needed.
And has that given you a whole new appreciation of, for instance, playing in the centres?
Yeah, I think from a playing perspective, it's increased my skills tenfold, like being able to be in those positions, understand the role, what we're trying to do. And also just, I think it helps both ways. So as a loose forward now, if I'm playing loose forward, it helps me understand what the centers are wanting, how they get there, when they get there, helping like with the forwards and the comms in those like units. And then vice versa, being a loose forward, I understand what the 12 needs and what helps like them. So it's been really fun and challenging to be able to learn the new roles and understand it, because I also love coaching rugby. So it's like giving me the appreciation of now being able to comfortably do a back session, not to be like, oh, I need to find someone to do that. I can do a back session. I can do the forward. So it's just kind of getting a full rugby picture.
I'd love to, I'm going to come back to the coaching piece that you just sort of spoke about then, but to continue along with the lines of how you dealt with it. And you said it took you maybe 10 games into the season for the hamster wheel to catch up. At what stage did you feel like you started to get comfortable at 12?
Oh, that's a good question. So maybe you can.
It's funny. Yeah, so it's funny that you spoke about the English game and when the winter sets in. So when the start of the season was quick, dry, hard tracks, he probably looked a little bit a step behind. But as soon as winter set in and it was, right, you're attacking the seam off that line out, or we just need go forward ball, which was essentially the role of a loose forward anyway. It sort of became seamless. And then when he started to, I think the biggest change was sort of seeing him attack little, like the short side opportunities that were presenting. He was starting to take them rather than just getting up, standing there, waiting for the ball to go the other way. He was looking for opportunity, and we scored a few tries down the edges that we probably wouldn't have scored at the start of the season. So I think it coincided with, 9-10 games into the season, it's wet. But I think that sort of just gave him a bit more confidence that his role changed slightly and the game slowed down a bit. So it wasn't he didn't have to think as much. It was just get us go forward ball. This is your role here. But then I'd say probably second half of the season, that's when he was being looked at by everyone as a 12, not a 7 that was playing 12.
Yeah, nice. And so in terms of, we've gone through that first section and as the weather's changed, for you, Trav, how much effort did you have to put into the psychological side of understanding that role? So, you said it took a while for you to catch up, but was it every training session just going, okay, what does a 12 do? Asking lots of questions. Did you do your own research? Did you go and check, video footage to get an idea of what you had to do?
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit of all of that. I think it was asking questions, it was getting feedback during the sessions. It was then going back and analyzing, watching your trainings, watching things, watching how the 12s or how I was moving versus, what you see on the weekend with like your top internationals. And just getting that second nature of, okay, this is where you got to move. And then it was actively during the training sessions, like when we were training our shape against the line and all of that kind of stuff, like really being deliberate in the way I approached the training session so that I could knew we only had 5 minutes to work on this today or 5-10 minutes to work on it. Let's be the best I can be and try get into push yourself extra hard to get yourself into those positions. during training so that on the weekend you're not thinking about it. I'm not going, oh, flip, I've got to be behind this pot of forwards. So I think it was just with the training and the analysis and then just the feedback from the coaches, it then just became, okay, you know what your role is. Bang, get up, off you go. This is where you get to. This is what we need to do.
And so those first few weeks of putting a 12 jersey on, what were the nerves like? What was your anticipation of the game like?
I wouldn't say I was nervous because, like we said earlier, like the system and the structure that we play, at least, like, you know, I knew what my role was. I knew what my job was to achieve it. But there was just like small things of like the nerves of when we call, let's say, the ball and there's an option on out the back and it's got to be quick passes. I've always prided myself on being a skillful loose forward. Being a skillful loose forward is an average 12. So being able to execute that skill when needed, like deep in your own half, to take that risk was probably the thing that I would say I was nervous about starting the season. And then as we got more and more comfortable being able to, you know what, I see the space, we call it, we execute the skill. So I would say that was probably like one of the most nervous things. And just like the transition, I remember the first game, I remember it clearly. 12, we make a line break. I'm head of the forward pod, standing there, and I've got the 13 shots, and then you're going, Trav, you're a back, get behind them. And I remember giggling after that because it ended up being a knock on, and he was like, mate, need you behind the pod, not in front of the pod. And I was like, just, you know, just takes over when you get involved.
So it was almost a reminder that we go back to our default setting, which we've set up over so long beforehand, that it does take time to change that mentality around what is my role here. You know, when we're under pressure or we're fatigued, we go back to a default setting.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that highlights, as you know, everyone says, you know, you go back to the way you train or what you've practiced when you're under fatigue and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just, and that was a prime example of, in the moment, in the heat, I didn't go back to what I was consciously thinking of. I went back to what I've done for the past however many years, and then had to get reminded, move back.
Yeah. And so, like, if you look at it now, if you had your time over, and you could probably answer this from both points of view, yours, Alex, as well, is would you change having 12 months in the 12 jersey and being back now in the back row, which I'm assuming you're probably back in the back row? Would you do that time again, or would you want to just stay in the back row last year?
No, I'd probably want to do it for even longer. Which
hint, nudge, Alex.
So yeah, like after the 12 months there, like this season, the challenge that's been put forward is to be able to still be efficient at both for me. So the player development that I've got as a 12 has been able to help my loose forward career massively. So like
in what ways?
Because I've never been the heaviest loose forward, I've always had to be fairly skillful and agile and be able to use that skill set to make meters. So as a back, being one of the bigger backs, it was quite nice because I got to use my loose forward skill set, but then develop the catch pass, the decision making under pressure. So now being able to do that last year, when you go into the pods as a forward, I feel like I've got so much more time on the ball, like, because it's not big gaps, not high speed backs rushing for you. Forwards tend to be a little bit slower just in the way that they move. So I feel like I've got so much more time on the ball to be able to dig into the line, make the right decision. So I think it's only been able to benefit what I do as a forward now as a back.
I don't think he's quite let go of the dream of being a 12. There's been a few instances where the forwards coach has come up to me and said, listen, are you telling Trav that you need him with the backs in units today? And I'm like, nah, what? And he's saying, no, he said that you need him. I'm like, I didn't say that. And then Trav's coming to me going, Smithy doesn't need me. Can I come with the backs today? And I'm like, that is not the case. I'm not saying that at all, but I've said he can join the backs when the forwards don't require him for a unit session.
Well, he's just doing what you said, isn't he then?
Yeah. But no, He did a great job at 12 for us last year. I mean, he's played it down a little bit, made National 1 Team of the Year at 12, and was probably, well, one of the most dominant 12s in the competition. So for someone to be able to do that off the probably realistically 10 days of training, to step into a league campaign where you're not just playing every week, you're playing every week to win the league. And there was an expectation that we win the league. So it wasn't like, oh, we lose a game, don't worry about it. It was like, if we see an opportunity, we've got to take it and do not cock it up because it could be costly. So I think he's talked it down a little bit, which is unlike him, but he did a very good job for us. But he needs to let that sort of just dwindle a little bit now. But I think the more time he spends with the forwards, the more he wants to be with the backs.
Naturally. Now, Trav, I want to go down the coaching path questions. And the first one I ask is, having coached now, and you're doing a fair bit of work in that development space, has having to coach other people improved your game because you have a better perspective on the game from a coach's point of view?
100%. It's something that I've always like promoted to like other players and stuff. So I was fortunate or unfortunately, I tore my ACL first year out of school and was out for the whole year. And so immediately after leaving school, I went straight into coaching because I was injured. So obviously while I was rehabbing, all that kind of stuff, I had time on my hands. So I went immediately into coaching, and it's probably one of the best things that I could have done for my rugby career, is because just the ability to be able to understand your role even better, because now you're trying to explain something to someone who doesn't understand it. So what might come as second nature to me, I'll explain somewhat or to one of the kids you're coaching, and you think you've dumbed it down or you've said it in the most simple way possible. And a kid might look at you and say, "Sir, I don't understand that." And you go, and it forces you to think about that role on a deeper level to then be able to re-explain it and understand it better, to then let that person understand it. So I would say it's been one of the best things for my playing career has been coaching, because it forces you to look into the little things that for you is second nature, and then forces you to explain them to everyone else.
And so you spoke there about, your actual role and once again, similar to playing 12 from a back rower's point of view, just that appreciation of the variety of positions and the requirements across the whole team. That's just opened your eyes up because you've had to explain it to kids that may not understand it.
Yeah, and I think like it all goes hand in hand. Like if you coach, you have to understand the full game. If you're playing, you have to understand the game, and being able to then explain it just helps. Like I would say, it's just one of those like great relationships that, as for me, every player should do some form of coaching to be able to help yourself understand your role better and the roles required throughout the team.
Trav asks questions a lot, right? So to say that, like, it's quite interesting that you say that you have to think about stuff and dumb it down, because Trav's a very deep thinker. So he'll, at the end of training session, if we've installed something new, he'll go into the nitty gritty of like a certain running line or someone's role, whatever it is. But it's quite interesting that you think so deeply about it, but then when you're coaching, you think so you try and simplify it so much. So it almost not contradicts what you like. You're playing from your coaching. It's interesting that you said that he tries to dumb it down, because you could probably benefit a little from doing that as a player, because you overthink stuff. Like, he overthinks stuff all the time on the pitch.
Is that a fair comment, Trav?
Yeah. I think I asked and potentially, let's say, overthink a lot of things. So like potentially asking, do we do this off here, or do you run this off then, or thoughts on just a whole bunch of like those like really, let's say, overthinking questions. But for me, I enjoy asking them, because if I can understand it and an extremely complex level, then I can, in my head, if I understand that, then I can make it simple. Ironically, and then then at least I know like all the levels about it. So like Alex says, I've always been someone who just asks a lot of questions. I've never been just we're doing this. Okay, we're doing that, crack on. I always want to know why we're doing it, what we're trying to achieve. Like, what are we trying to create within the opposition? And it's just, I think it's come from watching rugby when I was young, trying to understand what it, like always just having that little interest in the little bit further than just what you see. So like not being like, oh, that's a great try. It's going, well, why did it happen? And then like Alex said, it's quite contradictory because I want to know all the detail, but then when I coach, it's sometimes just having to make it as simple as possible, and then slowly, depending on the players and who you're working with, add value. Or if the kid's, more advanced, you can give them those little tips. So it's just for me trying to that understanding.
And so understanding it from a coach's point of view, did that come naturally to you and you worked it out yourself, or were you given advice on, hey, when you're coaching, you got to simplify this. So stop overthinking it as you would as a player. Did someone say that to you, or did it come naturally? Did you understand it when you started coaching?
I think I've been fortunate enough to work with great coaches throughout my schoolboy and young career to have picked it up from them, not necessarily knowingly, but picked it up from them and knowing when to be like when to share, when not to share, when to dumb it down. And also I've always been in environments, especially when I was young in the junior system at the Lions, was to always, like, if you don't understand, ask a question. Like, especially if we're explaining something and we're doing something new, or it's like, and you're not 100% sure, they would rather you ask than not ask and then mess it up. And so that was something that just through my play-in was encouraged. And then I try to take those same principles into when I started coaching, that pathway as well.
Do you think asking questions or players feeling free to ask questions, is that a cultural thing set up in each separate environment? Or do you think it's something that spans across all of rugby, that, most rugby players are going to ask questions? Or how do you think it sits? Where's the balance there?
I think it is, every rugby player is going to ask questions. The difference is in your good environments, it's encouraged to ask questions, and it's open, and it's a very much an open door policy. It's not you're questioning me. It's you're trying to gain an understanding, and it's the relationship and the environment that's created that then allows players to feel confident enough to ask those questions. Like, I've been in environments where guys don't understand, but they're too scared to ask the question because the coach is going to be like, you don't know your detail, and drop you. Whereas the lad just wants a bit of clarity. Whereas I find in your best environments, it's you're asking the questions, you can gain better understanding. And you asking isn't you not knowing, it's you trying to get more clarity on it. And I think there's a massive shift. There'll always be questions, and it's just if your players are comfortable enough to ask the question, and when to, and as players know when to ask the questions, and like I said, if they feel comfortable to do that, you have a way better learning environment, which proceeds to you being better on pitch, better results than players who are scared to ask because they, like I said, you're going to get they're going to get dropped or something like that.
And so, like, identifying some skills around the questioning, have you found that coaching side of things has enabled you to develop your communication skills? So knowing how to question a player better, knowing how to give instruction better, has being a coach developed better communication skills, which you then transfer into your play?
Yeah, I would say both sides of it again, like being a player, knowing when to question, and being a coach, knowing when to, and just seeing it from both sides. So I can have the same conversation, like seeing it from me asking the questions. Like I learned early on in my career, I once asked, the coach was saying something, and in front of everyone, I was like, but did we not say this? And this is now like a challenge instead of after the session, I was like, coach, can we chat? And I asked the same question and we had a conversation about it. Whereas in session, there were 30 guys and it was, just crack on. This is what we're doing. And it was the exact same question I remember asking. And in one situation, you can talk about it and you can go back and forth, and he understands why I'm asking. And he explains, why he's saying what he's saying, and we get that understanding. So like learning that from a player's perspective then allowed me to, as a coach, know when to have those questions, and like just get that better timing of when to ask, when to answer, and when to get that feedback.
And so, Alex, from your point of view, like does dealing with Travis in training sessions and around games, do you notice the difference in communication skills based on him having coaching experience as opposed to some players who've just played and they haven't worried about the coaching side of things?
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't aware of the amount of coaching that Trav had done until now. So, but I just thought it was a maturity thing, and the level that he's played at, he kind of understands when to and when not to ask questions. But the benefit of having Trav around is that we can give detail as coaches and things like that on whatever we're doing. But then it's the little conversations that the players are having between themselves that give each other clarity on what we're trying to achieve. Because sometimes as a coach, like Trav says, you've got 30, 40 guys you're dealing with, and you haven't got the time to go into minute detail on one person's role. But Trav is often seen having little conversations with players after the message has been given by the coach. And so it's just a 5-10 second conversation that just enables that one or two players to go, yes, sweet, I've got it now. And that impacts what we're trying to do. So I don't know if Trav is aware of that, but those are conversations that are seen and heard by the coaches. But it's nice to be able to sort of go, he can handle that, and players start to see that we've got a couple of players like that within the group that players will go to, and they'll say just on the fly, in between drills or in between reps, and they'll just say, well, what did I do there? Or, is that right? And it's just, yeah, or just hold your feet there and attack the outside shoulder, not the inside shoulder, or whatever it is. And those conversations are invaluable. And I think that obviously now hearing that he's done the coaching that he's done kind of makes sense.
Trav, how does that make you feel when you hear feedback from Alex there that it's invaluable? The stuff, the micro chat that you're providing around the field is invaluable. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think as a leader and someone who's always like relished the opportunity to be a leader in the squad, it's something that it feels great to hear that, that those small things are getting picked up on. But at the same time, I've always gone with the approach of trying to make those around me better. And that's just something that I've tried to do my whole career. And if someone is even in the same position as me and I can make them better, and that means I don't play because that person is better than me, I've always been someone who's relished that ability to make those around me better and to try get the team into the best place and do what's best for the team. I know rugby it's one of those, it's a team sport, but I want us to do well, but often sometimes is I want us to do well, but I don't want you to do as good as me, because that means, I don't get to eat, like the dog eat dog work. But I've always seen it as if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. But if I can make the guy around me better and he cracks on and he goes forward, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to let it be easy. So I'm going to compete. I'm going to challenge you. But ideally for me is if I can get those guys around me to the best that they can be. I don't know where their ceiling is, but if I can keep getting them to get better and better, it's only going to benefit me because it's going to force me to be better and better. It's only going to make the team better. So it's like hearing that is really, really great. And, it means that the messages that we're sending are getting picked up and seen. But it also means that the guys around us should be getting better and better.
From a mental point of view or a psychological skill point of view, what would be your superpower mental skill that you think at the end of your career you could just say, yep, I nailed that mental skill? What would it be?
I've had a bit of a think of this, and I'd probably say I want to say perseverant, in the sense, because I've struggled with injury throughout my career, I've had so many people come up to me, like, I've had 4 knee operations, I've had a shoulder op, I've had an ankle op. And after like 1 or 2 operations, people will be like, oh, surely that's you done now. Surely you're going to pack it in. And that's fueled more of my return and coming back, and that continual like learning, getting better, getting back on the field. Just because so many people are like, oh, after 1 knee op, oh, surely that's you done. And I'm going like, I never want to be that person at 40 going, oh, I could have done it. But, I had that knee injury, and you stood there with a beer and a bit. And I'm just like, that's for me. So the perseverance to, if it's a setback, if it's a change of position, if it's a new role, just persevering and learning and getting back and being better than what I was. So just that like mental toughness that's come through those injuries and those lonely times when you're out for a year, and you see your mates at the club, but there's a fixture on the weekend, so guys crack on. So I'd say that mental toughness and resilience to just get through and complete the job at hand, it would be my superpower that I can take forward after playing into whatever role it is, be it coaching, work, family, just taking that superpower of there's a job, do it.
Mate, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Alex, thank you very much for your time. And it was great just to be able to, have that interchange between you two, given the environment you're both in and that understanding between the two. So the idea of this podcast, Trav, is that in 1 or 2 years' time, we sit down and I revisit the conversation, and we can look at some of the things you've said today and say what has changed, and based on the environment that you might be in 2 years' time, say, for instance, see what have been the changes and why they have changed. So, mate, I look forward to having that chat down the line.
Sounds excited.
Thanks for joining me, Alex Stajka and Travis Gordon, for today's episode. I hope Travis has provided you with something valuable to think about for your sport. If you feel you need to up your mental game and want to upgrade your psychological skills, please get in touch with me at Sisu Live. That's SISU Live. We work with athletes and coaches around their mindset and mental skills to maximise their development and performance. One thing we do know for certain is that mindset matters. So as you progress through the week, have a think about your mindset and what you're bringing to your sport. If this episode resonated with you and you think it could help someone else, please share it and continue being part of a community that values high performance done the right way. I'm your host, Dwayne Nestor, and this has been the Sporting Mindset Show.